But I see so many people with their employees that are stupid with how they show up for their employees, and they're falling all over freaking, pennies and not realizing they could be grabbing dollars. And because they don't understand that if you don't show up for your employees, if you want the Ritz-Carlton service delivered to your clients and your end person, you better freaking have shown your employees what it feels like to stay at the Ritz-Carlton.
Hello, everybody. This is Jake Stanziano, host of the Wheelbarrow Properties Podcast, here with my co-host, the multifamily mentor, the coach, chef, the father of six, the best-selling author, the G-Daddy, Gino Barbaro. Gino, how's it going?
Mr. Stanziano, I'm excited about today because we're going to be learning about how to build rapport and how to make some friends.
Hey, man, that sounds good to me. Today's guest is John Ruhlin, the world's leading authority in maximizing customer loyalty through radical generosity. He is the founder and author of Giftology, a system of using generosity to gain access to elite clients and generate thousands of referrals. John and his firm now help automate this process for individuals and organizations and can help any individual turn their clients into their own personal sales force to drive exponential growth. So without further ado, John, welcome to the show.
Hey, man. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
That's a great bio you got there. So we're going through the man. It's fancy, man. I like it. We got
it was meticulously crafted. Dude,
yes.
People throw their bio together. It's like it's like people that don't design their book cover. It's like, oh, that's good enough. It's like, do people judge a book by its cover? They shouldn't, but they freaking do. So you better put some time and energy.
Yeah. First class, just like your book.
John,
man.
you know the amazing thing. Jake actually read the whole thing. After one or two sentences, I usually lose Jake.
Yeah.
Sometimes the plane just lands quick. It might be like the first sentence. I'm like, we gotta get into this shit. So no, but it's very, very well done. Very well done. So let's talk about a little bit. The world, we're talking about how the world's changed. People's hair's growing longer, and COVID definitely has upended some things. So how has gifting changed for you and your group? Over the last 3-4 months.
Well, what I'd say is that the last 20 years and even the last 4 months, nobody gives two rips about gifts. Nobody wakes up, even in COVID, pre-COVID. Nobody's like, man, I got to wake up and do my miracle morning and start off with my gifting strategy. Nobody cares. But especially in the last 4 months, when your back's against the wall, when your back's into a corner, when you're in a valley, everybody says, like, the only way I'm going to make this is with relationships. And that could be a relationship with a mastermind, it could be a relationship with a coach, it could be a relationship with your clients, your vendors that are willing to work with you, your employees that are willing to go the extra mile and maybe not take a paycheck because they believe in the cause or because you're not able to make payroll. And so if all business rises and falls on relationships and you find out who really has your back when you're in that valley, then how you show up for people, how you show gratitude, how you show thoughtfulness, how you show appreciation, how you show that you're not just lip service, like, oh yeah, I care about authenticity, I care about all these different buzzwords. When things are hitting the fan, that's when you find out like who really is locked arm in arm as a soldier with you. And to me, it's like the gift is just a delivery vehicle for an emotion, a delivery vehicle for I care, I have your back, I'm thinking about you, even though we can't break bread or go golfing or go on that incentive trip. Gifting, it in many ways has, like we have some clients that have increased their budget 400% or 500%. And we've had some clients that have gone out of business. If you're in casinos or travel, like you're getting just absolutely crushed. But there's other clients that are in real estate or they're in financial services or insurance, and they're those are nobody says we're in a transactional business when you're doing high level deals. Most of the time those are done on trust, and so a lot of those places are like, John, what the frick do we do? Like normally we do like the Morton Steakhouse. Normally we sponsor this big event. How do we show up for people? Let people know we're still thinking about them versus, just the typical like mass email. So our business is like, we have like one of our biggest vendors is Cutco, and they literally can't make knives fast enough. Mm-hmm. And that sounds insane, but
I've been buying a lot of knives lately.
Yeah.
I just collect them though. So here's the thing though, but like, we get, I get gifts from different vendors and bankers and things. I'm getting shit that I've never seen before now, like stuff to open door handles so I don't have to touch them and like super like weird microbiotical, whatever shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, you sent it to the wrong person. Like I just let it rip. So it's like, you got to know your customer, right? Cause I don't know what to do with this shit. I give it to my wife and she's like, oh, cool. But
yeah, and then it gets, ends up at Goodwill or in the trash can.
Yeah.
I mean, people are like, hey, let's do hand sanitizer, let's do masks. I'm like, we don't have to go down that rabbit trail, but that's not who I am. So I'm not going to put my name on some trinket from China or some crappy thing I don't believe in. And so now more than ever,
because you're going to get more virus that way, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm the rule breaker. I'm the guy that's going against the grain and saying what's the real data, what's the real factor. But in general, when it comes to gifting, I've never been a fan of the trinket, the tchotchke. That people say, oh, this is a token of my appreciation. I'm like, would you call that relationship a token relationship? Hell no. You'd say that's my valuable relationship. That's I can't invest enough in that relationship. But most people give excuses for their lame, trinkety little baskets full of crap, and nobody wants it. Especially not your higher level. If guys that are making 6, 7, 8 figures, those men and women don't want it. Their families, maybe they'll look through it and be like, oh, this is kind of cool for a week, and then it's trash. Is that really a good investment? So I mean the hand sanitizers and the little open up the door handle crap. I'm like,
never knew what it was. Really? I was like a caveman, is this a fire starter or what?
I know. I've had people reach out John, what do you think about this? We could partner on this. And I'm like, guys, sorry, that's just not no, man. I'm not putting my name on that. That's not Giftology. There's not. I mean, if you want promotional products to hand out to 20,000 people, go have at it. But I think now more than ever, quality over quantity beats it, all day long in the long haul versus, hey, we're branding ourselves. I'm like, no, you're not. That's embarrassing.
So guys, I want everyone to write this down. It's not what you say, it's how you make them feel. That's why John is on this podcast. So let me say that again. It's not what you say, it's how you make a person feel. And I think giving a gift, I have a lot of props here. I'm going to share some props with John, with everybody on the call, because I think talking about our customer journey and our customer experience, it doesn't have to be these thousands and thousands of dollars of gifts. It can start out simply with a handwritten thank you card for my daughter. Really, that's the first customer touch point. We have everybody in the CRM, so I want to send out handwritten thank you cards for birthdays. Also, my son is part of Rand Partners, so every time an investor signs up, he's sending out a handwritten thank you card in an 18-year-old's handwriting. But it's just the first touch point, and continue on. John, let me just share a couple other things that we do. We have a swag box that when students sign up, they spend a significant amount of money, and they invest with us. They get a nice swag box that has our books in it. It has some shirts in it. What else we put in there? We put in a handwritten thank you card, a welcome letter, as if they're getting, coming in part of a college experience, water bottles and all that stuff. Then we have a closers club. So when a student closes a deal, every student gets a closers club, gets a Jake and Gino pen. We get a picture frame with them on the deal. They get on the closers wall. So we try to create that experience. What else do I got over here? When we close deals,
he's going to rip us for not sending Rolexes right now. We're not going.
Not yet. We're getting there. Not yet. We got little cubes there. When people invest with us as partners, we got cubes that we send out to them to make them become part of that Rand experience. What else do I got here? I've got a cutting board that I want to start sending out. So one of our students actually created cutting boards. He sent me this cutting board last week. It's a short.
We're getting closer. We're warming up to him now. We're
beautiful.
Getting closer to the knives.
Beautiful. No, yeah. You know what? We actually do send out a lot of knives, but it's just those little touch points as far as, and we don't want to put the Jake and Gino brand or logo. That's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to create that experience that every time they get something in the mail, because everything is delivered digitally now, right? But when you get a nice swag box and then you get a nice closers club box, it's all those touch points and those thank you cards, Jake, they go a real long way with students, because I got students putting them on their refrigerators, and because I take the time out and I really thank the students to become part of the community and all the effort and all the work that goes in. So don't poo-poo those small gifts that are really personal to people.
Handwritten note. I tell people all the time, if you guys want a hot seat moment where we can analyze the things you're doing to figure out.
Yeah, man, dude, we always want to get better.
Yeah, so I would say the handwritten note to me is better than a $100 gift card or gift, because it shows time, energy, investment, and thoughtfulness. When you give something that has your brand on it, it's not a gift. Now, in your guys' case, they maybe feel a part of a family. Like if you go to Harvard, you care about the Harvard logo.
Yes.
So your brand could carry some weight and actually add value to the product, but it's never going to surpass their name.
Yes.
It's never, it's Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. If I was looking at that pen, I would be looking at a Mont Blanc. I don't know what a deal for them is. I don't know what your guys' average transactions are or what a transaction.
I guess that's a fancy pen, right? He just said Sauvignon Blanc or something. I don't know. What you say that again, John, for us that are not pen snobs.
I would say that, it's like Rolex. Even if you're not a watch snob, you know what a Rolex is. A Mont Blanc you can get at Costco for under $300. So it's not like a $3,000 pen.
Yeah.
But if you're signing deals that are 6, 7 figure, I don't know what you guys' average deal is, but and I don't know what it costs to be a part of your group. But I would look for something where when every time they see that pen, even 10 years from now, like everybody gets pens, but no, like I remember the first Mont Blanc somebody gave me. And I remember, like, I don't have to, you don't have to put like Gino or Ruhlin Group or Giftology on it. Like, you remember where the sucker came from because it's world class. Because it's not like 1% better than the cross pen you got. It's like, wow, this person took some energy and invested in an artifact because they care about the relationship. And every time they sign a deal, every time they write a note, subconsciously for the next 10, 20, 30 years, it's probably something that they would think about passing down to their kids or grandkids.
That's the deal pen.
That's the deal pen. That's this is for real pen. So I think some of the things that you guys are doing are awesome. The handwritten note by far, but from your kid or from yourself or whatever else. Like I think at the end of the day, that's why we don't allow any gifts to go out with handwritten notes. People are like, can't you just automate it on Amazon? I'm like, relationships aren't automated. So if it feels like it was given to the masses, if it feels like it came out automatically, it doesn't have the same emotional feeling as, holy crap, they were thinking about me specifically and thought about my family and my livelihood and my deals and my future, like my legacy. Like those are the words when you start like getting emotional about like thinking about your kids or grandkids. Like most of us, men or women, like we think about like multi-generational and we think about our legacy. So I think you guys are on the right path. I think but the handwritten note to me is a huge deal.
So Gino, we cut some expenses during COVID. All right, it's time to get back to growth phase. So John's, basically getting the checkbook out. It's time to start investing. We're investing into $300 pens from here on out. So if anyone's going to join the family, you're already getting $300 back. So
I thought Jake was going to say we're going to buy some axes or something. It's hard to ship axes, Jake.
Yeah, but
pens,
that's for me. It's not for them. All right. So.
I love it, bro.
I freaking love it.
So give us an example. The book is awesome. You have an example of the power of giving that really affected you or really helped you out in growing your business.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that the Brooks Brothers experience, which is the opening chapter in the book, I actually put numbers to that since we wrote the book. And people were like, man, you did $7,000 in Brooks Brothers. That's stupid. For Cameron Harold, like, why would you spend that much?
Tell that story again for the folks that aren't familiar with that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I met Cameron. I joined EO, this entrepreneurs organization. It's like YPO or Vistage, CEO group. Heard him speak. Was like, this guy, I want him not just as a client. I want him as a mentor, an advisor, a referral source. Like I want him in my corner. And I found out he was coming to Cleveland, which is where I was living at the time. And so I'm like, oh man, we got lower level LeBron seats. Go to Morton's dinner. We're gonna have this like bro session, and we'll be buddies by the end of this. That's what I'm thinking. And when I invited him to the game, he's like, I guess I'll go. I guess I'm in town. Like it was the most underwhelming response ever. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh, John, like you're an idiot. Like everybody in business follows the same playbook. We do the same gifts. We do the same dinners, the same ball games, the same rounds of golf. Like we follow the same thing. Like that's not going to wow him. Like he's going to go with 50 of these stupid dinners and ball games this year. So I asked him, I said, Cameron, what else are you going to do when you're in town? He said, hey, I love shopping. I'm going to go shopping. And I'm like, oh, where? And he said, there's not a ton of Brooks Brothers in Canada. I'm going to go there. So I said, oh, I'm a Jose Bank fan. What's your shirt size? I want to send you a shirt. And he's looking at me kind of weird and a little bewildered. Like, does this dude have a man crush on me? That's a weird, like, very forward question to ask another man within like 3 minutes of meeting. But he was, the Canadian charm and like humility is like, he actually told me. Didn't make me feel stupid, even though, he probably could have. And so I leave there, talk to my business partner. He thought it was the worst idea ever. Cameron starts texting me 3 months later when he's flying in. Hey, my flight's delayed. I'm not sure if I'm gonna get in town. Like he's trying to weasel out of the dinner and the ball game. And I said, no, Cameron, whenever you get in, no problem. And so I ended up going up to Brooks Brothers and I put down the Amex and I bought one of everything in the new fall collection, all the jacket, suits, belts, pants, everything. It was $7,000. And then we went and outfitted his hotel room at the Ritz, like a Brooks Brothers store. Jackets here, belts, suits. And I'm downstairs, like I'm not a big drinker, but I was drinking like a triple on the rocks of bourbon. I was like, oh my gosh. And my partner's chiming in my ear. He just bought half the company, by the way, about half the Giftology. Like, he's going to think you're a stalker. This is going to blow up in our face. This is the stupidest idea ever. I'm like pouring with sweat. Cameron gets in. You can tell all he wants to do is take a shower and go to bed. I'm like, Cameron, go take a shower. Come down when you're ready. We're not in a big hurry. And he comes down like 20 minutes later. He said, John, whatever you want to talk about for as long as you want to talk about it. I thought when I flew to Dubai first class and like met with the Sheikh of Qatar and the 300 companies, that was like an amazing experience. Never had anybody treated me this way. He took pictures, texted them to other authors that included them in the books. And after that, so we went to the game. I didn't talk anything about myself. I was just there to learn. I was there to build a relationship. And for the next 7 years after that, every quarter I sent him a different gift. I built him the $5,000 knife set for him and his family. I sent him like custom leather goods. I sent him a $600 wine tool. I sent him things that like would be real artifacts, never asking for anything. And this past February, we got, because of connections Cameron had made and whatever else, like before I had a book, like people would be like, you know, like who's John Ruhlin, who's Giftology, nobody cares. And Cameron, when he would get double booked, he'd be like, you got to book John Ruhlin. And they'd be like, who's John Ruhlin? He'd be like, just trust me. And so my first $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 speaking gigs were all as a direct result of Cameron. And we spoke last fall, or this past February, in Australia for a large Fortune 500 company. And with travel and books and a few gifts, our speaking fee was about $85,000.
Nice.
So I figured out the monetary amount that Cameron has put back into the business. So I invest $20,000, but in one relationship, it's been 50x. It's been over 7 figures because of investing in one person. So people are like, John, like, why did you increase your gifting budget this year in a down year? And I'm like, I increased it to $600,000 because of this. If I can get guys like Cameron out there selling for me, I couldn't hire him as a sales rep for $2 million. He wants to go out and sell for me because over 10 years, I invested $20,000. Mm-hmm. And so when you reinvest in people, it's not that who cares about the gift, who cares about, you know, it's if they buy in and become a client and they grow with you and then they become a sales rep for you, you can't spend too much money on somebody that's willing to go out there and actively sell for you. You just can't. Mm-hmm. Because a referral in a deal in like, you know, in real estate could be worth, you know, $100,000 in profit, $500,000 in profit. You know, like a speaking deal for us is $35,000 to $70,000.
A real estate deal can pay you for the rest of your life.
It pay you for the rest of your life.
That's crazy. So
when you think about it, like who cares about, you know, yes, it's nice to keep them as a client. Yes, it's nice to get the occasional referral. But when they're going out of their way to actively open doors for you and sell for you, that's something you can't buy. Like you can't buy that level of loyalty. I call that active loyalty. People think they have loyalty because they stick around as a client. That's not loyalty. That's passive loyalty. Like we all have employees that will stay with us as long as they get a paycheck. That's not loyalty. Mm-hmm. Active loyalty is somebody that's willing to do the extra thing and and go out of their way to recruit their family and friends to come work at your company. Like we have people that work for us that are multi-family members because like we try to create an atmosphere at Giftology where people want to bring their friends and family. Like that's real loyalty because they're like, this is a great place to be. Passive loyalty is not that. And the same with clients. Like if your clients aren't selling for you, then there's a problem. They don't trust you. They don't feel like there's a disconnect there in some way, shape, or form if they're not actively going out there and talking about you. And so that's like Cameron's a great example of like, you know, like do we spend $20,000 on every relationship? No. But we sure as heck don't send trinkets and say, hey, we're going to take care of 5,000 people with some trinket or basket or a gift card. Mm-hmm. We go all in on our top 500 clients or centers of influence. And when you do that, like that's where the magic starts to happen if you show up for people consistently, not a one and done. Oh, I did a gift. Well, all the referrals should come to me. It's like, is that how advertising or business works? Like you do one thing one time and magically, no, it's like I showed up for Cameron for years, for a decade to earn the right for him to want to do that.
I love that. So Jake, if it makes you money,
I guess it costs you nothing, right?
So,
is that what you're trying to tell me here?
Exactly. So that is the personification of that, right? So as entrepreneurs, we're always looking at costs and expenses, but I think you need to shift our mindset and to say, hey, listen, it's not a cost or it's an expense, it's an investment. So whenever you're looking at something, if you can think of that as an investment, I think you'll be less cheap and you'll become more creative, I think. You know, John, what I want to ask you, there's really 2 big questions I need to ask. But the first one, what is some of the biggest sins that you see people making? I mean, you already mentioned a couple of trinkets, your own branding on there. What else do you see people making mistakes on when they try to give a gift?
Yeah, well, they're not thinking like in business. I don't care the industry. Everybody has marketing plans, business plan, financial plan. Personally, they have maybe, you know, a marriage plan or a health plan or a workout plan. When you ask a leader of a company, what's your relationship plan? Like if relationships matter to you and relationships are going to drive your business, your referrals, your deal flow, your access, your engagement, like, you know, you got to have a team of people or contractors or whatever. Like if people matter, then you better have a plan on how you're going to show up for those people. It can't be, oh, we're going to do it once a year at Christmas. Oh, we're only going to do it on birthdays. Like it needs to be a year-round, 365-day plan. And it needs to be a math equation. It needs to be a reinvestment of not like, oh, I feel generous today, I'm going to do this today, but tomorrow I'm going to feel a little bit like, you know, Scrooge-ish, and I'm going to like show up as a cheap bastard. Like it needs to be consistent. If you say you're world-class, then your relationship plan needs to be world-class. And so making a math equation so people understand this is a true, like you talked about, an investment. If I invest dollars, I need to get an ROI over the next decade fast. And so not having a plan is I think one of the biggest things, and not really making it a math equation. They make it a gut equation. On December 3rd, they feel guilty they made money. And all of a sudden, like they decide to be, you know, Daddy Warbucks and throw some big bash and party and cigars or whatever else. And then comes February, it's like all that is worn off. It's like a workout plan. Like I'm going to lose the weight this year. It's like, no, you're not. You're going to be excited for 4 weeks, and then you're going to fall off a cliff like the other 98% of people. And so our people, you know, we walk people through, leaders of all different sides of the company, through a relationship plan. If your tribe wants to go download what literally took us 20 years to figure out and then go do it on their own, you don't even have to hire a firm to do it. It's Giftologysystem.com. They can download, it's essentially a fancy Excel sheet that walks them through. I don't care what you're gifting, who you're gifting is more important than what you're gifting. When you're gifting is more important than what you're gifting. People start, like guys are the worst. What's the cool thing that I can get one of that I can give to all my clients? Oh, I love Bose headphones. Let's give everybody Bose. So they start with the what. They haven't even determined, is there 25 people that matter? Is there 75 people that matter? Are there 5 people that matter? And what should you be investing back into those people? Why should you be sending them the gift? When would mean the most? What's the handwritten note going to say? So it walks people through what they should be thinking about first, which is segmenting and bucketing their relationships currently and what they need to invest in long term, not for a year, for multiple years. Like I won't take on a client that's not committed to 3 years. Because the last thing you want to do is show up as Daddy Warbucks for 6 months and then go back to being Ebenezer Scrooge. You actually do more harm than if you just stayed consistent and just wrote a lot of handwritten notes. Like I tell people all the time, like if you don't have the budget or you can't see this or this isn't who you are, if you're not a generous person, don't put on an act and act generous in one part of your life that's not going to be consistent. People will tell that it's a charade, it's a fraud. And so having that plan though and saying, hey, I'm committed to this for 3 years. This is how I'm going to show up. This is what I'm going to reinvest. This is who I'm going to go after. And that download allows you to do that and not even have to pay one dime. You go do it on your own.
Here's the crazy thing about our industry. Number one, multifamily investors don't even understand who their clients are. And their clients are the brokers. People look at brokers that are bringing them deals. Those are the sales rep. That the hardest thing is, as a multifamily investor, your biggest client, those are your brokers. And no one is investing money into those brokers. And
take advantage of them. They take them for granted.
Yeah, there should be a campaign because they're the ones bringing you the deals that can set you free for life. There should, and we're guilty of this. So we at least we recognize that these are our clients and we want to take care of these folks. But we fail at a proper campaign to nurture those relationships better. So I think, you know, we're guilty of it. We're not maybe as guilty as everybody else, but you know, it's ignorance and stupidity that we're not better at this because that's basically what feeds us, you know, day in and day out. It's idiotic. It was like a realization, you know, as we're sitting here. So
yeah, well, I mean, in our industry, people take advantage of vendors all the time, like the manufacturers of the product, and I'm like. Yeah, and I learned this from OC Tanner, who's an $800 million company that's in the gifting. They make like the gold medals for Olympics. They're out of Utah. And when Rolex comes to town, they're the largest buyers of Rolex. They put on the Ritz, man. They spend all this money taking care of Rolex when they're like the client. And I'm like, why would you do that? And they're like, we don't have a business without manufacturers and brands like Rolex. So we treat them like the client. So anytime you can find an area like where you can invest in people that know everybody else are taking advantage of and always going and asking for money, or, you know, like you want them to make their first phone call to you, or to run the extra mile, or to be open on a weekend, or run an extra shift, or whatever it is. So I treat my vendors better than most people treat their best clients and referral sources. And in your case, the brokers would be that exact same kind of person. Yeah. Most people go to them and take advantage. Those guys should be treated like kings.
Yeah. Wow. I love in the book also, you talk about core values. Why should your gifts reflect your core values?
Well, I think that it's like going to if you go to a restaurant and they're this fancy steakhouse, blah, 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 they serve the finest wine and they serve the finest dry aged beef and all these other things that I love. And then you go into the restroom and it's like, it looks like somebody got murdered in there. Like, are you going back to that restaurant? Probably not. Because you're like, there's something that's off. Like, this is a detail that everybody sees that people don't, like, for some reason, they're not caring about. What's going on behind the scenes in the kitchen and with the food quality.
It's just going to continue to get worse. Yeah.
It's going to get worse. So the reason that core values are so important is if you say you're best in class, world class, and first class, and then you send something to somebody that isn't that's a crappy piece of whatever from China with a logo on it, you're not congruent. Like that's like, it's like showing up and having like this, $5,000 or $10,000 suit, and then you're wearing like Walmart shoes that aren't Shine. Like it just doesn't, it's not congruent. It doesn't fit. And it creates doubt. It creates a lack of trust. And even if people can't put their finger on it, subconsciously they say, something's off here. And so knowing your core values and saying, hey, we're best in class, we're first class, we're world class in all of these other areas. And I see people do it all the time. Their dinners, their conferences, their events, their podcasts, their brochure is all at a Ritz-Carlton level. And then they do their gifting at a Motel 6 level, and they wonder why it's doing them more harm than good. Well, it's not an alignment. It's not, they communicate. It's better to not even do it at all than to do it. And so I tell people, like, let's narrow the focus. It's like being on too many channels on social media. Like, I see people try to do too many at once, and people are like, John, why aren't you on TikTok? And I'm like, because we don't have the ability to do it world class. So I'm not going to do it yet. And why aren't you on this? I'm like, why didn't you have an email that went out to everybody until 2 years ago? And I'm like, because it wasn't world class. I'd rather do nothing and wait and then go all in and do it right. And I'm not saying we're perfect at it. Like, we fall down and try things and, make mistakes. So it's not that like you have to be perfect, but like being congruent with those things, with your core values, and every touch point all communicates either we're in alignment, we're world class, or it doesn't. And I don't want to invest dollars to have a negative consequence.
I love that. This is a question that I think would really help out the Raymond Property Management team. The ladies there are doing an amazing job for Jennifer and Shannon. We're trying to conceptualize and create the customer journey, customer experience for the residents, right? We're in the B and C space. We can't give mom black pens to all, all those residents. And we want to really, affect their lives. We're going to go with the thank you cards and all that, but give us an idea. Jay can share what we did during COVID with toilet paper, but can you give us a couple ideas of those touch points when somebody's only paying $600 a month in rent, and how can we affect them, and how can we make our gifting more powerful for them?
Yeah. Well, I think that the bar, the good thing is the bar is low. When you're going out, if you're trying to gift brokers, that's a different level of person from an income perspective and what they like or what's going to wow them or their family. What I would say is that if you understand the demographics of who you're taking care of, are they families? Do most of them have young kids? Like, to me, like, taking care of the inner circle in almost every single relationship, like, it's one thing to take care of the decision maker, the person, signing the lease or the agreement. It's another thing to realize most of them are married and they have a significant other, or most of them have young kids. What can we do that would be really cool and wow? Because if you make somebody's kids light up, they will never forget you. If you can engage them. So I would start to look at it and say, $600 a month, not a lot. That's $7,200 a year. What's our gross and net profit from that? And then what do we want to reinvest back into that? What's our realistic bucket that makes sense financially? Is it 5% of net? Is it 10%? Our range is 5 to 15% of net. I don't care what the gross is. Because some companies have these huge dollar amounts, but their actual take home is this. I'm like, let's focus on reinvesting a portion of that. I think your lever point is taking care of spouses, is taking care of pets if they have pets. It's the inner circle concept. Like, if you do something for somebody's pet, even a custom collar or whatever. So I would start to look at all, say you had 1,000 tenants. What are 80% of them? What buckets do they fall into? And then how can you build in? I mean, I think the handwritten note, like, how many of them actually get a handwritten note in any part of their life? Maybe from their mom or grandma. Like, a handwritten note's super powerful in 2020 when everything's automated. So I wouldn't discount that, but I would figure out, like, yes, there's the onboarding gift, but 6 months in, nobody's expecting things. Like, we have home builders all the time that we do gifts for. And yes, they do the big welcome basket when somebody moves in, but we do the big knife set 6 months in, because why? Well, they've already got the money. They've already moved in. They're already settled. And all of a sudden this freaking love bomb shows up that They're like, you already had our money. We already closed. We already everything. Why'd you do this? It's like, because we care about you. Like, this is a lifelong relationship. You know the amount of referrals that they get after that 6-month love bomb and then ongoing? That customer, you know, when the paint cracks a little bit or something's wrong, they give them the benefit of the doubt because they're like, these guys, you know, actually care about me as a human being. They care about my family. Like, they're still showing up for me when they didn't have to. I mean, I think that's the big thing, is figure out the times when nobody would expect for you to do something.
Yes. Great.
And show up then. Show up when they don't have to, not because it was in the contract, not out of obligation or expectation. You know, maybe it's showing up and, you know, maybe part of the thing is like, you know, we pay to have all of our employees' houses cleaned, and that gives us like $50,000 in value because nobody on the planet does that for their employees. Maybe it's showing up and saying, hey, we want to, you know, you've been in the property, you know, for 6 months or 8 months. We want to tidy it up for you, and we want to touch up some of the nicks and whatever else because you got kids, or, you know, how much does that really cost? Send the maintenance guy there and go through systematically the entire property and do that. And they're like, what property manager does that? Nobody. So I think there's ways that you could leverage. Yes, you could leverage tangible gifts, but the other intangibles, I think, show care, thoughtfulness, love, communication that would cause a ripple effect for people to say, all things being equal, do I want to stay here? Do I want to tell my friends and family about this place? Like, that's where like there starts to create a ripple effect where you get your you know, you're never going to please every single tenant. There's some that are unreasonable, and that's where most people focus. And they're like, these guys are just taking advantage of us and they destroy our properties and they whatever. And it's like, is that really 80% of them? No, probably 20%, 2%. What can we do to the 80% and love on them and inspire them to go like drown out all the noise of the idiots that you're never going to please no matter what?
I love that. One more question before we get to the personal growth. I could ask you like 30 other questions. And while everyone's out there, it's giftologysystem.com. Go take a look at that website. And also John Ruhlin's book, Giftology. It's amazing. I have like 15 more questions, but I mean, there's so much knowledge. And you would think in the beginning, oh, gifting, easy, 1, 2, 3. I mean, Jaybird, if you're listening to this, Jaybird, I've got like,
not easy.
I've got 3 action items. I'm going to kill you with all the information I'm taking down here. So just be ready, my friend. You know what I'm saying? So segmenting buckets and relationships. Jaybird, I think you're going to be sweating after this podcast. But anyway, how do you apply Giftology to employees? I mean, that's something that, you know, sometimes we drop the ball on. We just think of a nominal gift and think of a dollar amount and go, here's your gift.
Yeah, well, I would say that most companies, when they hire us to do all their gifting for them, they want to start with prospects. And I'm like, the person where you need to start first is your internal customer, not even your external, not even your vendors. Like, start internal. Because if you start doing Ritz-Carlton level stuff for your clients and your brokers or whatever else, and then you give Motel 6 level to your employees, whether they say it or not, they're pissed, they're bitter, they're annoyed. They're like, we're doing all the freaking work. We're creating this, helping you create this vision, this mission, this culture, and we get the leftovers. Like that was like my family early on. Like, I would do all these crazy things, and my wife, for the first 4 or 5 years of marriage, I would show up with nothing left in the gas tank. And I was the worst gifter at home. It's like the cobbler's kid who has no shoes. It's like, it was the worst. And so what I would say is start internal first. And here's the funny part. This is like what blows me away is you'll hire somebody, or anybody will hire somebody. I was talking to Google and they're like, oh, we can never do that. And I'm like, really, Google? You got slides in your lobby and all this other stupid stuff. They're like, oh, we can never afford house cleaning. And I'm like, yeah, you can. When you hire an employee, let's say even like an assistant or an admin or a janitor, you're paying 35 to 45 grand, let's say. That's a $10,000 swing that when you're hiring a new employee, people will drop 50 grand on a new hire and not think twice about adding 50 grand to their overhead. One employee. And the swing that they give them for the salary is almost always $10,000. We're hiring this person, it's 85 to 95. It's 75 to 65. It's a $10,000 swing that we don't think as business owners anything about. But if you invested $10,000 in that human being per year, that would you could make their life easier. You could pay for their house cleaning. We're starting to pay for $5,000 mattresses for our employees. Why? Well, they're staying, all of our employees for 12 years have been stay at home. They've been work from home. We've been remote for 12 years. How do you build culture and say, I care about you and your family and your spouse? Sleeping, you're spending a third of your freaking life on a mattress, and most employees are never going to go buy the best mattress for themselves because they would rather buy their kids Christmas gifts or pay out on their debt on their house. But if you make them get a better night's sleep, guess what they also become? A better employee. So to me, it's looking at you being just as creative with your employees and saying, $5,000 for a mattress sounds like a lot until I lose a key employee, or until I have to add another employee to replace, or I have to hire 2 people to replace the one person who was amazing. Now all of a sudden, $5,000 looks really freaking cheap for one person. Mm-hmm. And so it's getting like, nobody brags about their 401k. Nobody brags about their health benefits. And yet as business owners, that could cost us $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 an employee. And we just take it. We just say, cost of doing business. But if we get creative about making the life better, so we pay for marriage retreats for employees. We'll pay for the overnight. We'll pay for unlimited babysitter for date night. People are like, well, it's not a lot of money. And I'm like, if you want your employees to go through a divorce, what does that cost the company? I can tell you what it costs. It's tens of thousands of dollars if you have an employee that goes through a divorce, because their head is not in the game. They're having to take off work, all of these different things. And so if you start to look at humans as humans again, which is hard for all of us because we all look at spreadsheets and numbers and we don't have unlimited buckets to pull from. But I see so many people with their employees that are stupid with how they show up for their employees, and they're falling all over freaking, pennies and not realizing they could be grabbing dollars. And because they don't understand that if you don't show up for your employees, if you want the Ritz-Carlton service delivered to your clients and your end person, you better freaking have shown your employees what it feels like to stay at the Ritz-Carlton. They should stay there. They should receive maybe the Mont Blanc pen. That sounds crazy, but if you want them to think about things differently, then they have to experience things differently. And there could be a sliding scale on that. But the things we do for our team, people are like, I don't care where we speak, people are like, holy crap, we can never do that. And what they don't realize is that it actually, the investment, the fact that they go recruit their family and friends to work with Giftology, the fact that they will work on a weekend if needed be, but we're not making their life hell. Like, we actually want them to succeed as a human, not just as a employee, as a soldier of Giftology.
Love that.
You got to find the how. How are you going to do it? That's right. I like it. All right, gang, let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsor.
Are you looking for ways to improve your life?
Here at Jake and Gino, our mission is to empower students through financial education and the vehicle of multifamily investing.
Yes, Jake. We agree that a person with financial intelligence can change the world for the better.
We've created our proprietary 3-step framework, buy right, manage right, and finance right, that we teach to our community. This framework, along with education, our one-on-one mentorship, on-site boot camps, and the amazing community, has propelled our students to massive success.
We've all been there. We've had so many students that have been able to shift their mindset, overcome limiting beliefs, and set a clear path to achieve their goals. Whether you're currently fixing and flipping, wholesaling, or buying single-family rentals, and you know that multifamily investing is the right vehicle for you, I encourage you to visit jakeandgino.com/apply to schedule your complimentary consultation with our team. And I want to let you know this isn't a high-pressure sales call. It's really just a discovery call to get to know each other better and see if we're a good fit for working together. And if for any reason we're not a good fit, our team has tons of resources we will share with you to help you along your journey.
If you're ready to stop spinning your wheels, go to jakeandgino.com/apply and schedule your call now. All right, we're back. John, what is your best habit for success?
My best habit for success?
Besides that, high and tight. Keeping it high and tight, besides that.
I mean, I think that, to me, I get up in the morning, every morning, and spend time in the sauna. I have a sauna at my house. I just ordered a cold plunge tank. I think, during COVID, most people have put on the COVID-15 or the COVID-19. I've actually dropped 11% body fat. I was already in the best shape.
Dude, that's huge. He's not talking 11 pounds. He's talking about 11% body fat. That's 11% crazy,
body
dude.
fat in the last 6 months.
Holy shit.
So, and that started during COVID. It was like, you know what? Like, I want to,
That's because he got the COVID and he was getting sickly. No.
I can assure you it was not that. But I think that, as leaders, we don't take care of ourselves oftentimes. Like, we think that, like, taking care of our health and our sleep and whatever else. So, like, to me, I try to surround myself with guys like Hal Elrod and other friends for 10, 15, 20 years that take care of themselves. Like, you can't, pour from an empty cup. And so to me, like, the cold plunge tank, I've been doing cold showers for 2 years. I'm like, you know what? We're going to go get the $7,000 Morosco Ford cold plunge tank. So every day, twice a day, I can do something that sucks to make my body stronger and better. And so I think that I didn't do that early on in my career. I just kind of said, you know what, selling trumps health. I'll get there. I'll eventually do it. It'll go on the back burner. But if you don't prioritize yourself and taking care of yourself, I don't think we can be good, strong leaders long term. Like, we're going to crash and burn. And I've had moments like that where I crash and burn or almost crash and burn. And I'm like, no, I need to be taking care of myself. I need to be taking care of my family. And that, that's not a big flash in the pan. Like, that's day in and day out. That's consistently. And when you do that, like, there creates habits and ripple effects into other parts of your business in your life. So that would be my, my non-negotiable.
Yeah, that consistency is huge. You dropped a lot of tips on scaling a business. Anything else, for folks? I know you talked about, folks working remotely and the different, gifts and things. Any tips for someone scaling a business?
Well, I think that understanding, what you're actually in the business of or what you're actually doing, like, I think a lot of times people try to serve too many different markets. For us, like, we've gotten narrow into the markets that we serve really, really well, and realizing people are like, why don't you do the send out card type automated cards, or why don't you do the, you could sell masks, or you could sell logo crap at $5. Like we've continued to stay really, really focused and narrow on what we're really good at. And so I think that, for me, you can't scale something where you don't have like a real solution for somebody. And you try to be all things to all people. People are like, why have you stayed with and done the stupid knives till 20 years later? And I'm like, because it freaking works. Mm-hmm. We're focused on things that have systems and that are replicatable, that aren't one-offs, that are able to scale. And so I think that finding those solutions that fit a specific niche and realizing there's a lot of companies that we're not a good fit for, and that's okay. It's, like, people are like, really, like, gifting, like, that's an industry, like high-end gifting, like, really, like, yeah, it is. And it's growing and it's big and it's significant. So for me, like, that's been our key is and it's hard for me as an entrepreneur because I see all of the opportunities and I am always wanting to chase the shiny object.
You got the G-Dad right there, So here's the thing. When I think for an early stage entrepreneur, your answer there, they may be like, okay. For folks that have lived it and they've battled in the jungle, I think everything you're saying right there is so true because it's core values, it's authenticity, it's being true to yourself. And I think it's hard for people that are early in the game to grasp that. But I completely agree with everything you just said. But I think that only comes with experience and taking the lumps as an entrepreneur. So I think that's a phenomenal answer.
Yeah, I've been punched in the face many times over 20 years,
dude,
man.
No doubt.
Getting the teeth kicked in, and no doubt.
So from a customer service standpoint, is there anything that we haven't covered today that your group excels at or does that's completely different from the crowd? I know we probably hit on a lot of things, but.
Well, the surprise and delight, what I'd say is a follow-up or a 2.0 version. Like, we do the gifting and the touches, the delivery vehicle really well. I think that if you haven't read Joey Coleman's book, Never Lose a Customer, he has another book coming out, Never Lose an Employee. And I think that there's real power in his systems and methodology. He works with like companies like Zappos, but understanding gifting, he calls them presents, are one thing. There's 5 other ways that you can engage a customer. It could be a handwritten note, could be a video. There's a lot of different ways to systematize and be strategic about how you show up. And I think you guys are, it sounds like doing those things and showing up, not just one dimensionally, but showing up different ways. We're adding more and more of those. Like, I'm doing a lot more videos, whether it's, instead of posting on somebody's Facebook, post for happy birthday, I'm sending them a personalized, video, that takes 60 seconds. But to me, like, I'm always looking for ways, business and personally, like just with human relationships, to be different than what everybody else are doing. And so I think Joey's book, and Joey lives it. Like, if you've never heard him speak or never had him on your show, like, he's somebody who, he's one of the most entertaining presenters on the planet. He's a client of ours, and he speaks all over the world, but I would say his methodology would be the thing that we're following, and collaborating with to kind of take all of our touches to the next level.
Dude, we're working on it. It's a Q4 priority of ours, actually, and it's a big undertaking. But if you get it right, I think the loyalty that you can create with it, and I think it's, going back to that authenticity piece. It's who we aspire to be. It's who we want to be. So yeah, we're big fans of Joey. Gino, it looked like you're about to say something. Don't want to cut you off.
I was just going to say, Joey Coleman, we've worked with him, and one of his gifts is he likes root beer. So, I mean, that's the thing. You have to become granular and know exactly what somebody wants.
Yeah, he doesn't drink alcohol. No, he's send the best
until we spiked it.
Yeah. And we have, because we worked with him. We
didn't spike it. We worked with him.
But like you said, it's getting to know the client, and maybe a $10 pack of root beer goes a lot longer than a $300 bottle of tequila. So, I mean, that's part of what we're talking about. And it's hard because it's always about us. We're thinking about us, but sometimes we need to step outside of ourselves and really ask the other person, well, what would they like? What would really empower them? If I get Jake a sword behind him, I mean, Jake would be my best friend. I can buy him an axe or something.
Depends on how quality it is, though. Like, I don't want shit, right? So
yeah, you don't want to trap. Yeah, you want real. I want real, not fake. I want real in all areas. I want real.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I love what you're saying about artifacts. That's a great term. What any book recommendations you've read in the last 6 months that you want to shout out to folks?
Well, the one I've read in the last month that blew my mind, it's going to sound like the most boring thing on the planet, is it's called Breath. And it's about breathing. And this guy who's like a New York Times, have you guys read it, by the way?
No. Never even heard of it. Yeah.
It came out within the last maybe 2 months. Wim Hof has talked about it. And then if you're familiar with Wim Hof, he's the crazy dude that like can, with breath and cold, has been able to like heal himself and, runs like a marathon in Antarctica in bare feet, or climbs Mount Everest in flip flops. He's a crazy Polish dude who's like speaks on Tony Robbins stage. He's like, he won't even come speak for you for $100,000. Like, he's that level now. But the concept that, like, we can't live without breath for, like, we can live without water for days, without food for months. Like, breath is this huge thing. And the idea of how we breathe and what we breathe and the tempo and all this other stuff that sounds like, who cares? He went and studied it all over the world for years, this guy who was like this maven researcher, and super fascinating. It's like changing like how I sleep. It's changing like my normal activities in the morning. It blew my mind. I'm doing the exercise, whatever else, but to me, it's like, it's one of the most core things as human beings. And there's no class. Like, it's amazing all the things that are never taught in school that are like the most important things, like, like balancing a checkbook or emotional intelligence or all these different things that are radically important for success in life. And yet they're very little talked about, if at all, in undergrad or even, in college. And so to me, that book was, I can't recommend it highly enough. If you nerd out and want to get it to be a better human, to me, it's a powerful one.
So, Jake, I've gotten written here, breathe and slow down. So I guess it's on my laptop. I see that every day. Well, when I slow down my cadence, I'm a New Yorker, so I'm trying to slow down my speech. But breathing is changing your physiology, getting oxygen into your brain and all that. And it's something that I guess the next book I got to buy, John. You're killing me. I got enough books on my shelf, and I guess this one's gonna go to the top.
Get it on Audible. Get it on Audible, and I've trained myself. I'm now at 2.1 So an 8-hour book.
You're at 2.1 speed?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So I want to get to 3. I have a buddy, Justin Donald. I don't know if you guys have had him on the show or not. He's somebody who's brilliant from a lifestyle He owns lifestyleinvestor.com. He's a 15-year friend. He's like, dude, you're only at 2.1. I've been at 3 for like 3 years. I'm like,
dude, I'm like a slug. I'm at like 1.4 right now. I gotta step my game up. Shit.
Yeah, but anyway, breath is to me, like, it's a game changer, and yeah, Justin would be another great guest.
Last question: what project are you excited about right now?
I've been building a relationship with Gary Chapman, the guy who wrote 5 Love Languages, for the last 3 years. His book is a Christian marriage book. It's been out for 30 years. It's still hitting the New York Times bestseller list, and I want him to write with me the 5 Love Languages for business. His publisher turned me down, but I don't give up easily. He just gave me an endorsement for Giftology based upon his wife reading it and becoming a huge fan of Giftology. But a dude that is, I think they've been married 57 years. He's in his 70s. Last year, before COVID, he spoke 72 times. And he's just this gem of a human, kind, smart. And so I think that the 5 love languages should be applied in all relationships in business, not just employees, not just clients. And I think that that's kind of the next evolution of what we're talking about, is how to show up for people, how to love on people.
Is that one on Audible?
5 love languages?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the regular one. Oh,
because I've had multiple. So something's wrong with it, but I've had multiple women in my life recommend that. I'm looking at it up there because I actually got it as a gift. So it's something like the ether is pushing me in a certain direction. So I might need to even put that one in front of Breathe right now. So
yeah, it'll take you an hour to read, even though it's the shortest book on the planet,
okay.
but it really is. Like, most people tend to give love the way that they like to receive it,
yes.
and you end up marrying the person who's opposite of you. So you're like words of affirmation and she's quality time or whatever. Like, that's for me. I'm words of affirmation. People assume my love language is gifting. It's not. So if I can do gifting really well, it's just because I've learned how to do it. It's a strategy. It's a learned principle.
Mm-hmm.
But words of affirmation, I'm actually an introvert too. So when I send a gift, it gets people to to actually respond to me. Because I'm not the life of the party guy. Like, people are like, oh, you're on stages. I'm like, I'm the guy that goes by myself to have a cigar to watch, Sports Center after speaking, because I'm actually an introvert. But the 5 love languages, the framework is so simple, but when you start to realize, especially with your spouse, it could be transformational if you're willing to apply it the right way and not use it as a manipulation. Because that's the key, is with women, they can tell, in emotional intelligence, they're way better than us. And they're better at relationships because they can tell, are you doing this to be self-serving, or are you doing this because you actually want to show up for? Yeah. I mean, they
always judging. Why are they always judging, man?
So guys, it's really funny. Now, as you mention the 5 love languages, my wife pops up the steps over here and she gives me a nice shake. So we've had our thing about the 5 love languages, because I was always like, what are these little gifts?
Spoiled, dude.
Her love language is like gifting, right? She wants like these little trinkets, these little gifts, and it's just a thought. I mean, and it's crazy. It took me about 18 years. I'm a little slow. It took me a little bit of time to figure that out,
It communicates that they matter. It communicates, I now, but it's the same thing as quality time or active service. For some people, it's like doing the dishes is like is like foreplay.
Mm-hmm.
Other people could give 2 rips if you clean the whole house. But if you'll sit down with them and talk to them for an hour, or cuddle up and watch Netflix for an hour, like, that's the quality time. So it's so weird. I mean, all of us have an element of all 5 of them, but most people have a primary and a secondary, and almost always we're flipped with our spouses. Very rarely is like you marry somebody, if yours is words of affirmation, that you marry somebody else that has words of affirmation, because we're always looking for, like the yin and the yang, somebody that's different than us.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway. This isn't a marriage show, but hey,
it might be.
If you want to grow a company, staying married and having a successful family and relationship at home, there's a lot of entrepreneurs I know that have gotten their wealth cut in half and have a blown up family that they have to build, rebuild pieces of. So to me, like, divorce has never been an option, not because our marriage hasn't sucked at times and gone through really bad places where it could have gone that direction. But to me, like, having that rock and firm foundation allows you to go out and conquer the world. If you have a sucky home life and don't take care of home, eventually that's going to come back and bite you in multiple ways. I've seen it with mentors and advisors. So I'm like, you got to take care of home base at all costs.
Yeah, no doubt. So for folks that believe in constant improvement, they realize they're lacking right now, what's the best way to start the conversation with you, and maybe detail that a little bit?
I would say you go download the free download and see, like, is this do you really want to put in the work to have a plan? If you don't,
where's the tell us where the download is again. Giftologysystem.com. Okay. If you want somebody to help you fast track, we charge a couple $grand to walk you through that with you to make it happen faster, versus most people, if they're not given accountability with a coach or somebody that's going to help them, they're going to say, oh, I'm going to do that. And then 6 months from now, like when I tried to write the book, if I hadn't cut a check for 25 grand, there still wouldn't be a Giftology. It's because we hired Scribe Media, which used to be Book in a Box, to hire, like, you're ready to cut a check for 25, 30 grand, all of a sudden, magically, all of a sudden priorities shift. And so I think with, gifting or marketing or leadership or weight loss, if you don't cut a check and have skin in the game, you're not going to do it. But there are a handful of people that can be self-starters and do it on their own, but that ends up not being the case. But download that. You can hire us to walk you through it.
the next step would be, getting, everybody on your team a copy of the book so everybody's on the same page. And whether you hire our firm or not, I would say you need to model Giftology to all of your stakeholders, which is your internal team. They need to feel what it feels like, because when they receive something as a surprise and their spouse comments on it, now all of a sudden they have a personal experience with which to pull from to say, I want to do this for this group of people that I oversee. Or, think about if you have account managers or a VP of sales or an assistant. When they feel a certain way, they're like, I want to go duplicate the same feeling for our relationships versus, Gino's got another great idea that he wants to do. Cause as entrepreneurs, we have, we're idea machines, and we're always coming to our team with another idea and another new concept and another new strategy. And they're like, oh, this is going to fizzle out in 3 weeks. So let's just kind of act like we're doing something. And then, because it's going to pass.
I can name some that are going on within our team right now that you say that, but it's so funny. I know they're just waiting for it to go away, and it's stuck on the board right now.
Even though we're crazy creatures as entrepreneurs, we're also very we follow certain, to break out of that habit of having follow through. If I didn't have a business partner who is the implementer, the operator, a lot of my ideas, like writing a book, never would happen. He held my feet to the fire. We cut the check. He's checked in with me. We laid out the plan. And by God, 6 months later, we had a book. Gifting is that same way. People have good intentions. Intentions don't do anything. It's following through and actually having a plan. And getting buy-in from your team so that they all want to take advantage and have ownership in I'm losing my voice. That's a big deal. So I think those are some of the simple steps. Somebody wants to email me directly, they're going to end up working with my team, but my personal email is John, it's on the screen, john@giftalogygroup.com. To have a conversation with the team to see if they're a fit or not, for us to actually execute for them. But to me, you got to have a plan. And Giftology, there's no Giftology 2.0 coming out anytime soon. Our playbook is all laid out. There's no secret sauce that we hold back from the book. It's all in there.
Giftology.com, Gino.
Well, I would sign up to John's email just to get his email, because his sales copy and his emails are freaking great. I love them. You know what I'm saying? So everyone's going to sign up to the email. That's the first thing.
His intro is sales copy's money, right?
Yeah, I love that. So Jake, I just want to recap this real quick for all the listeners. Picture this. John is working at Cutco as a young guy. He's going into sales, and then he gets this idea of Giftology. He gets this idea of creating this company. I love the book. The book is an amazing extension of what he's doing. We had John on the podcast about 2 years ago, maybe. And I thought he was amazing back then. And in the last 2 years, he's grown to an exponential growth. And he's actually working on himself. During COVID, he could have gone back and hid in a corner like a lot of people have done. Instead, he's
doing the Polar Bear Club in his backyard. It's just amazing stuff right now, right?
He's doubled down, right? And I think the biggest thing that everybody can take out of this is what I just scribbled this down. Intention times action equals results. We always say education times action equals results. That's with the multifamily space. But if you have an intention and you take action towards it, you're going to get your results. The other thing I would say is I love segregating and bucketing the relationships. I think that's one thing after this podcast is over. All of our vendors, and I got to be honest, we take our vendors for granted sometimes also, and that's something that we should not do. I like the time, energy, investment, thoughtfulness. That was really powerful. And I think, Jake, the last thing I'd like to leave everybody with is try to create a relationship plan. Really, you really need to have a plan on relationships. We take them for granted, and try to think of what the other side is always looking for. Not what's in it for me, but what's in it for them, and how can I impact others' lives.
Dude, well said, Gino. John, thank you so much for coming on.
Dude, thanks, you guys recapped all that. Thanks for having me.
Awesome,
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.